Hey everyone, we're back for one final dive into the tomb of the Serpent King, specifically going down to the lower tomb. Now we're going to have to be fast with this one because there's essentially 30 different rooms in this that we're going to have to look through and potentially convert or notate in ICRPG, because we're trying to take each one of these things and convert it to the index card RPG kind of style or approach. And so jumping right in level 3, there's essentially 4 main zones: the Outer Halls, Sacrifice Pit, Mantis Lair, and the Goblin Warren, and they have a slightly different tone about them. So we can keep that in mind as we describe it or as we plan out the actual session. And then there's also these wandering monsters. We didn't have wandering monsters in the first 2 levels, but down here at level 3, we've got these potential encounters or whatever. Now, I wouldn't necessarily run them as wandering monsters where every 30 minutes or so I roll or they make a lot of noise. What I would do is I would include these as potential timers. Depending on what's going on or how people are fighting, where they are in the dungeon, one of these might appear every timer or so. So essentially, like every D4 rounds, something might pop up, or nothing at all. Because I mean, 1, 2, and 3 are just omens. They're the rattling noise, the squelching in the distance. Because timers can also be an at this point you hear something. Okay, we're going to add that little bit of dread, and then we're going to re-roll the timer. Or I can add in these other monsters. And what I can do here is that every time the players make a lot of noise, rather than just one of the monsters showing up, you can just say, "Oh, you had a huge explosion. You just shot off the thump gun, or set off an explosion, or made a loud noise with your spell, or something crashed. I'm going to reduce the timer by 1 in response to that." You don't have to always wait for the GM's turn to tick down that timer, and that can add a lot of suspense. Alright, then we're out here on room 22, and this is leading out from the cavern, the crevice, or the big pit. And you got a recess in the wall, this big stone door. It contains the same type of hammer trap from trap 5, from room 5, but the hammer swings away from the door rather than towards it. This makes it easier to dodge, but any PCs may save or be flung into the chasm. Okay, so we're just gonna, do the same hammer trap from before, and what we'll say as well is that it's easy dex, or they are knocked back to hanging by a hand. And hanging by a hand, if we haven't gone over it before, is essentially whenever someone falls, you don't just like, oh, you die. It's they fall into a position where they're hanging by a hand, and what they have to do on their turn when it comes around is use a strength or a dex check to then pull themselves up. If they fail that roll, they go into a dying timer, and they're hanging by a finger. And while they're hanging by a finger, they cannot help themselves. They're essentially dying. Their timer is ticking down, and once that hits 0, they fall and then they die. But other people, whether they're hanging by a hand or by a finger, can step in and use their turn and their action to assist them. I'm going to use my strength to pull them up. Or they're hanging by a finger, I'm going to dive over there, grab a hold of them, and try to pull them up. And if they succeed, then they can pull them back up and remove that dying timer. And so we're not really worried about damage at this moment. We might include maybe a little bit, but right now it's mostly just make an easy dex save or get knocked back to hanging by a hand over the chasm. Then we got 23 Ceremonial Room. We got Meditate, contains several low benches, ancient wall hangings, and dry fountain. Pry a golden statue and hit it. A few scraps of gold leaf. Essentially it's just, this is going to be descriptive. And I'll probably provide, so this is descriptive room, but give them a clue about the goblins. That way they can get an idea that, hey, there might be something coming. Then we got a hallway. A long, narrow hallway slopes downward to the south, contains one skeleton jenny that will move towards the thing. Now here's one that I would say is, if there's a timer, I could potentially have this, or I would just ignore this hallway in general. unless there's a real big purpose why I would want to have that hallway be a scene, I'm going to ignore it. Or maybe I'll add a timer, because maybe it will come down and be like, okay, in 2 rounds, this skeleton jelly is going to show up at the next room, or it's going to be following you unless you deal with it. And then we've got the pit trap in room 25. This room has a false floor, but all the tires held with sticks and okay, whatever. Any PC stepping on the center must save or dodge to take 1d6 damage from the fall and save again, or take a further 1d6 from the spikes of the bottom. The fall tire, easy spot. Okay, so I would say it's an easy whiz to see trap, but then it's going to be a dex save to dodge. And then if they fall in, what it'll be is I'm just going to roll ultimate because they fall down and hit the spikes. May not kill them, it will just do some damage, and that's about it. But I can also say that maybe pit includes shabby loot times 1. So then if someone goes down, they can roll on the shabby loot table. Hallway, small passage branching the lock stairs. Okay, again, I'm just going to ignore that just because I don't need the hallway in the room to describe it. I think 26, yeah, it's just there. It's just, oh, there's a door. The slave room, the air is foul, and there's a distinct hissing sound coming through. This room was once used to keep slaves. So long as the manacles are enchanted to lock around the legs. Okay, again, I don't want to do anything really about that. So I'm just going to, descriptive again, and then give a clue. So now we're kind of down here, and then we have some space to go into, I believe, right here in 28. So the domed hall, an elaborate domed hall with a locked iron door in the south wall. The key to the door is around the basilisk's nest. The door isn't magical, but it would take a team of people hours or days to pry open. There is a broken stone door to the west. To the north are the flickering orange lights and the hiss of eternal flame. So this is where I would say, descriptive with the key and the basilisk. So I'm presenting them the key and the basilisk, and then I'm presenting them their choice. Do they want to go, to room 30, or do they want to go to, let's see, what's the map? So it'd be, south of 29 or 30, and 39 is there. So, up or down. Or I can say 29 or 30. So they can kind of choose which one they want. And obviously the treasure room is just there. And this can, whatever is you want to put in the bottom of your dungeon boss fight, a rare item, piles of gold loot. So I would then say that this includes, some epic / magic loot. This is a way to bump up the players. There's some really good advice was given to me by Lon, and it was the idea that before you end up in a big boss fight, like if you want to bump your players up, you should give it to them beforehand, so that in the fight it doesn't come across as pulling punches. So like rather than them in the middle of the boss fight find this epic super cool magic item that's really going to help them, it feels kind of like throwing, the GM throwing them a bone and saying, oh, here's some help that you can get. It like it's kind of deflating. So rather than giving to them in the scene, if you have a space before the scene that you can kind of boost them up, then it feels like you've given it to them beforehand, and then now they're using it to their best advantage in the scene. So this sounds like a really good place to boost up the players with some extra items, some extra powerful loot, so that when they do enter into some of the boss fights with the basilisk or the others, then they're going to be boosted and they'll get to use that cool stuff that they just found. All right, then 30, the sacrifice pit. Eternal flame burns in the carved center. Carbonized bones. There are runny streaks and a few carbon. So, there's really nothing that's encouraging them to like go down into the thing. So I'm just going to keep this mostly descriptive. If I were to do anything with that, but they kind of lead into another area of the tomb. All right, the guarded hall. Two incredibly lifelike snake men statues stand in the bottom corner. They are in fact petrified snake men placed here as punishment. If depetrified, they will fly into a murderous rage for 10 minutes, then slowly give in to despair. The statues are worth each of Solden or 10 times more to a wizard who recognizes them. Alright, so this is more descriptive and clues about the tomb. Once again, we're seeing that there's rooms here that have things that could be an encounter, but mostly they're going to be descriptive, unless like that's kind of what we're focusing on. All right, then we got the summoning room. Oh boy, this is a long one. Long narrow room, huge contains a bound succubus summoned by the snake man to answer questions about the lower hells. She appears as a young botanist and ankle shackle of the same race. All she needs is someone to step across the circle binding her. All right. So this is where we have the succubus encounter. So let's go back up to the monsters and see what we can do. Okay. Let's see, is it just... Yeah, it's just that. Stats: as a succubus, a young botanist, and an ankle shackle the same. Armor plate, normal can teleport, will flee and doesn't want to risk it and not return. Oh. So she's not even really aiming to fight anybody? Okay, whatever. Her true name is written on a skull. God fear her, knows her true nature, but assumes the party knows as well. She's immune to petrification, very good at dodging. She'll immediately flee from any conflict. If made to bargain, she can detect poison. Oh. Very good to kill anyone mortal that the pieces. She's patient and cunning, but true to her word. So she's not. So okay. So it's more about, you know, potential ally. Maybe? I don't know. This seems a little weird to me. Shrine alcove. An alcove containing a shrine to one of the most many cobra-headed gods. The statue has two holes. The statue can't be lifted. It rattles almost any effort. Inspection. Turning it will release poisonous gas. Turning it clockwise will cause a lot of gold. Some pieces will roll into blade trap hallway. Okay. So again, we've got a trap and gold. So we've got, if we were to do the trap, it would just be, I would probably say save con, or it's a D4 and D6 damage for D4 rounds. And then if we were to do the treasure, it says a lot of gold. So we'll do treasure, would be probably ancient loot times, you know, times 3, just to say. Alright, used by the Snake Man priest to go rest. The door rotted. It contains 5 blood-stained silk pillows. These are magical, coated in fresh mammalian legs grow. Can be used as hot water bottles. A single coating keeps an egg warm. Magical items may have a mundane purpose. Okay, so I have a hard time handing out, you know, as cool as it is to magical item may have a mundane purpose. Like, I'm here, and we'll probably dive into this when we actually start planning out this as a session. But I'm here on a mission, and we're exploring, and yeah, we can have these descriptive things, but a lot of the times that I'm looking for a way to kind of continue the plot, move from place to place. I would end up trying to run this almost as 1, maybe 2 sessions. And so stuff like this kind of, for me, slows things down. And so when I do get to that place where we're in the priest rest area, I want to think about how can I how can I use this to push forward rather than detract from the story. Although I totally understand that exploring a dungeon, there is that element of just exploring is for it, and that's something I'm trying to get better at. All right, this hallway is trapped. The ceiling is rigid like a gullet of a ridged like the gullet of a snake. Bands with tile wind across. Stepping on any of the raised tiles will activate 4 swinging blades. PCs save to dodge or take 1d6. Any movement through the 2 requires another save to dodge for 3 rounds after the trap activates. PCs who stand still don't take any damage. If a PC fails their save, they take a d6 damage. Alright, so this one is one that I wouldn't just write out. Trap, blades. This is one that I would actually have a room design around. And I'll work that in when I plan out this thing. Because this is enough of an encounter that I would want to have an actual room scoped out, described, and available to like present. You are now in the blade trap hallway, and that's this little thing here. The trick though is because of that nature of things, it means these other surrounding encounters are going to be smaller, and we kind of see that. Guarded hall, descriptive, succubus encounter, maybe a small RP moment. The shrine alcove, maybe a small trap. The priest rest area, descriptive. But then we have the blade trap hallway, and this is going to be my focal point for this scene, or this area. Then moving on, we've got the vestibule, partially rotted wall hanging low to the floor, which is carved into geometry. Anyone pressed against the wall cannot be seen by the basilisk. Okay, that's an interesting thing. Don't understand it. I might, when we get to the basilisk area, the pit trap identical. Really didn't want this, so we'll just do another pit trap, which was essentially whiz to see, then dex to save, fail, we get ultimate. All right, now we're on to, that's 37, that's the pit trap right there. Sliding down, coming around the corner into the basilisk hall. Huge stone chamber filled with broken pillars. This is another room design area that I would say. Room design, because we're now entering the boss fight. And so I would actually have a room built for this. And if we look at the basilisk monster himself, oh man, a whole page like that. That's a lot of text. All right, Basilisk Hall as a worm or dinosaur. A giant gray eight-legged lizard with a flat crocodile head, full of teeth. It has a visor made of brass bolted and a collar around its neck just in front of the first legs. Hit dice. Move. Morale right. Attacks right, and then it's chained. Okay, so we'll probably give this guy, I'm guessing anywhere between 5 and, I'm going to go with 5. 5 hearts. He's going to have, let's look at it. He's dealing, it looks like he's mostly dealing, he's got passive stare, unique death conditions, unless solved the rest of it stone, has 1 in 6 hits per year of becoming basilisk and hatching in 1d6 year. Okay, so that's we're going to ignore that. We've got charge, d8 damage, d6 damage. So we're just going to say all rolls. Actually, we're going to say weapon is plus. Let's go with 5. I guess I wrote 5. And then we're going to say ultimate. Ultimate is a plus 3, and then he gets a all rolls +1. Actually, you know what? I'm just going to say +2, and we're going to get rid of this ultimate. That way it's just easier. So we have weapon is pretty dangerous, and then all rolls still get a +2. Alright, so then we're thinking about the passive stare. They become heavy, they can save versus petrification, restore movement. If they fail, they are rooted in place and take a -4 penalty defense. This effect ends immediately if the basilisk looks away. If the basilisk stares at the target for a second round, they must save for petrification or turn to stone. If they pass, they're still rooted in place. They can only stare at targets directly in front of it unless its visor is removed. The effect has a 20-foot range. More than one target can be affected, but they must be very close together and test at the start of each round before initial order is determined. The effect is not reflected. The effect is not reflected by mirrors. It's not a Medusa. So how would I convert all of that into ICRPG standards? Well, let's see. Passive stare. So what I would do is first round would be let's go with save. We'll do a con save or all rolls hard. Okay. Second round, it's going to be a hard con save, and then if they fail, can't move and minus 4 defense, like it said. And then if they fail, okay, so never mind. So it says the first round is they con save, all rolls are hard, and then we'll say and -4 defense. Second round, if they pass, they must return to stone. Okay, so second round, hard con save, dying timer, turn to stone. So somebody's got to rescue them, get the basilisk off them, or they're entering a dying timer, turn to stone. All right, then we've got their basic attacks. Oh man, holy cow! Basilisk behavior. Okay, I'm going to completely ignore that right now, and that is something that I would use during this session prep. The attacks. You got the charge. We'll try to charge partially petrified target, but if blinded or annoyed, it will charge almost anything. It moves twice its normal usual speed straight ahead. This is normal attack with a normal. This is a normal attack with a normal attack roll. If hit, the target shatters and is devoured. If made of stone, if made of flesh, it takes 1d8 +2 damage and is knocked prone. If the target was not aware the basilisk was in the room, they must save versus fear. So this is just going to be, all in straight line. Take weapon. And this would be like as he comes across, I roll against their defense, roll against their defense, roll against their defense. Roll against each defense. I'm just going to say roll against defense. Because that way, if they're down here and they have a -4, then I'm rolling against their There. Lizard friends leave surrounded. The basilisk thrashes wildly. All creatures within take and must save or dodge or not prone. Okay, so again, they're going to do all near, take weapon, dex, save to half damage. And the tail strike that does not like being flanked while pretending to focus elsewhere whips its tail at a target. This is a normal attack and requires a normal attack roll with a -2 penalty. If hit, the target takes 1d and is flung in random direction. On a miss, target still takes, it can maintain. Okay, so I'm just going to say target 1, take ultimate, and thrown in random direction. That's all it's going to be. Alright, and then I'm going to ignore all of that because I think fighting the Basilisk, here's lessons to fight with it, here's other information. It's great, it's helpful learning, but it's a lot to keep track of as a GM. And we still got another page to go to. Okay, let's just move on real quick. Secret passage. Awesome, secret passage. Behind this, again, this is this kind of stuff that I would just have whiz to find. Staircase to the surface opens up to the crawler uses to route the raid. Yeah, this is just descriptive. Provide exit. So now they know where the exit is. And now we're getting into the cylinder room. A rotating cylinder of stone with a carved chunk big enough for 2 people. Rotates in both directions. Push. Turn it clockwise to activate a stabbing spear trap. Turn clockwise to reveal stone with 2 golden bowls. Some traps have patterns. Scout ahead. Okay. There. Okay, I'm just going to. Zizimanter's entrance hall. He looks like a dried human corpse. Fused. He wears. So this is another boss fight. You know. Boss encounter with this. Whoop. Desires living creature, imperfectly intelligently, ideally wizards. He distills them to make his potions. While utterly immoral, he's neither rude nor murderous. He firmly believes he's close enough. PCs will not be allowed past the entrance unless they agree to be. Okay, so this is going to be more of an RP moment. RP moment. You trade ingredient storage rooms, barrels of ancient herbs. Okay, so this is more chance to provide loot. Potion brewing room. Okay, more ways to use diplomacy and get some more treasure. So we're gonna just write down RP/treasure. Throne room. The giant door at the end of the basement made it intertwined stone stake. One snake is missing. It can be found in the summoning room. If it's replaced, the door will slither open, revealing his room made of redstone, gold, and mirrors. The 8. Anyone sitting in it. Anyone sitting in it must save or desire lordship and conquest. Has a secret passage from his lair, but he hasn't used it for centuries. Okay. And then we have the Goblin Warren. Sorry, I'm ignoring a lot of these just because they're just so much. And it's mostly a descriptive scene. So this is, when I actually plan this out, this is going to be like distilled down into almost a singular room rather than here's another room and another room and another room and another room. The Goblin Warren, this room is part of the Goblin Warren is low cave. It's clear that the room has collapsed centuries ago and were hollowed out by the goblins. Use this room to store feathers, rags. Okay. So we got clue about the goblins. Goblin details plus probably shabby loot. Goblin spawning pit. It contains the goblin's hideous mass of fungus, dead animals, and bloated sacks of fluid. Nausea or fleeing disgust. The pit reincarnates still dead fungus goblins and is one of his failed experiments in immortality. There's no treasure here, but unless there is burned, the number of goblins will always be too many goblins. Okay, so this is how, if something was done in this room, I would reduce spawn die by 1 level for goblins if room is destroyed. So in the future, like if I'm spawning D8 goblins every round or fungus goblins every round, then I would reduce it from a D8 to a D6, something like that. The Goblin Throne Room. Most of the time, this room contains 1d6 times 1d6 fungus goblins eating bats. If they haven't recently found a living creature to crown, they'll make an idol out of sticks and muds. The goblin kind of made of bent cutlery and sticks they used to have, but they all. Okay, so this is more of another descriptive / RP room. All right, last couple. Goblin Farms, stickly plants. So we got some. Dredging this room reveals more treasure. Crown is worth 300 gold. Gold for the materials and gems alone is made of 8 tiny intertwined serpents. The crown is also magical. Anywhere who is not a smith, save season which has dungeon cucumbers. Okay. So we can do treasure / stealth. And then the last two, Goblin Rumpus Room. There's no particular but any time guide will be present. The goblins will be asleep in either case. So this is Goblin Fight, or Stealth. Goblin, the most of claps used, store weapons. One goblin's on Sentry Tree. Okay, so then this is a Goblin Fight or Stealth, and it might reduce, or it might reduce the timer. And let's just look one final thing at the goblins. Let's see, where are you, goblins? This is a Mantor Fungus Goblins. Hit die 1, so there's definitely just 1 HP. They're just little mooks. And they're cunning slow, and I would probably say these guys just have +1 all rolls. And then they go from, but they're spawn a lot at once. Yeah, so there's just a lot of them. Okay. Whew. 30 rooms, really quick. And that's the lower tomb. So you can see that I obviously didn't cover everything, and my goal is as I'm converting this, I'm going to go through and clean this up and turn this into, how can I turn this into a single adventure? And then I'm also hoping to then compile a lot of this stuff and actually convert it into a more ICRPG style adventure module. We'll see how that goes. But yeah, so we'll look forward to one more video next week to actually like take all these notes and distill it down into an actual one session. Because this is a lot of stuff, but how can I run this whole tomb, this whole adventure in one session? And we'll take that challenge on and we'll talk about it next time.